Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories.
Just so you know, names and places have been changed to protect the guilty. The Clubhouse stood as a silent sentinel at the heart of our community, its pristine white exterior masking the turmoil brewing within. I'd lived in Sunnyside Estates for 5 years, content to pay my dues and enjoy the manicured lawns and well-maintained common areas. But that all changed the day I decided to host my daughter's sweet 16 party. "Mom, it'll be perfect," Amber exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. "We can decorate it however we want, and there's plenty of space for dancing." I nodded, caught up in her enthusiasm. "All right, sweetie. Let me check the rental process and we'll make it happen." Little did I know that this simple request would unravel a web of deceit that had been quietly suffocating our neighborhood for years. The next morning I called our HOA manager, Diane Holloway. Her voice was syrupy sweet as she answered, "Sunnyside Estates HOA, how can I help you?" "Hi Diane, it's Bonnie from 1542 Maple Drive. I'd like to rent the clubhouse for my daughter's birthday party next month." "Of course, Bonnie, I'd be happy to help you with that. The rental fee is $150 for the day, and there's a mandatory $130 cleaning fee." I paused, doing the math in my head. "That seems a bit steep for the cleaning. Who does the service?" There was a moment of silence before Diane replied, her tone noticeably cooler. "We contract with a local company. They do an excellent job. Could you give me their information? I'd like to compare rates." "I'm afraid that's confidential, Bonnie. We have an agreement with them." My journalist instincts, dormant since I'd left the field to raise my family, began to tingle. "Diane, I believe as residents we have the right to inspect HOA documents. Could I set up a time to review the cleaning contract?" The line went silent for so long I thought we'd been disconnected. Finally Diane spoke, her words clipped. "I'll need to check with the board. I'll get back to you." Days passed with no word from Diane. I left messages, sent emails, and even stopped by the HOA office, only to find it mysteriously closed during posted hours. My frustration grew with each unanswered inquiry. Finally, after 2 weeks of persistence, I received an email from Diane. "Dear Bonnie, I've spoken with the board and we can accommodate your request to view the documents. However, a board member must be present during the inspection. The next available date is 3 weeks from now on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Please confirm if this works for you. Best regards, Diane Holloway." I gritted my teeth as I read the email. 3 weeks, and in the middle of a workday, it felt like they were intentionally making this difficult. I fired back a response. "Diane, thank you for getting back to me. Unfortunately, I can't take time off work for this. Could you please email me the documents instead?" "Bonnie," her reply came swiftly. "Bonnie, we can provide copies of the documents for a fee of $2 per page. The total cost would be $117. Let me know if you'd like to proceed." "Diane," my jaw dropped. Over $100 for some photocopies. This was getting ridiculous. I showed the email to my husband Tom that evening. "This is insane," he muttered, shaking his head. "I'll go down there tomorrow and look at the documents myself. I've got the day off anyway." The next day, Tom returned from the HOA office, his face a storm cloud of anger. "You won't believe this," he fumed. "Diane wouldn't let me take pictures of the documents, said it was against policy, but she was perfectly fine with charging us for copies." I felt a knot forming in my stomach. "Did you at least get to see the cleaning contract?" Tom nodded grimly. "Oh yeah, I saw it all right. And guess whose signature was at the bottom?" My eyes widened. "No, yep. Diane Holloway, owner of Sparkle Clean Services." The pieces started falling into place. Diane had been using her position as HOA manager to funnel money into her own pocket through inflated cleaning fees. It was a blatant conflict of interest, and I was determined to expose it. Over the next few weeks, I dug deeper into our HOA's finances. I requested tax documents, board meeting minutes, and financial statements. Each request was met with resistance, delays, and exorbitant fees. But slowly a pattern emerged. I discovered that our HOA had been filing taxes under the name of the previous management company, despite changing to a new one in 2015. When I brought this to Diane's attention, she dismissed it as an electronic error and assured me they would file for a name change. But the inconsistencies didn't stop there. Board meeting minutes were vague and incomplete. Financial statements showed discrepancies that couldn't be easily explained. And through it all, Diane maintained her facade of helpfulness while throwing up roadblocks at every turn. I started talking to my neighbors, sharing what I'd found. Some were outraged, while others shrugged it off as just how things work. But a small group of us began to meet regularly, comparing notes and strategizing on how to bring about change. we decided to attend the next board meeting en masse, armed with questions and demands for transparency. The night of the meeting arrived, and we filed into the clubhouse, a united front of concerned homeowners. Diane's face paled as she saw us enter. The board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unused to such a large turnout. As the meeting began, we raised our hands one by one, voicing our concerns and demanding answers. Why are we paying inflated cleaning fees to a company owned by our HOA manager? How long has the HOA been filing taxes under the wrong name, and what are the potential legal ramifications? Why is it so difficult for homeowners to access HOA documents that we have a legal right to view? The board stumbled through their responses, clearly unprepared for this level of scrutiny. Diane attempted to deflect and minimize our concerns, but her usual poise was cracking under pressure. As the meeting drew to a close, the board president, a silver-haired man named Frank, cleared his throat. In light of these concerns, we'll be conducting a full audit of our finances and procedures. We appreciate your bringing this to our attention and promise to address each issue thoroughly. It felt like a small victory, but I knew the battle was far from over. As we filed out of the clubhouse, I overheard Diane hissing at Frank, "You can't be serious. This is all a misunderstanding. There's no need for an audit." Frank's response was too quiet for me to hear, but the look on Diane's face told me all I needed to know. She was cornered, and she knew it. In the weeks that followed, our community was in turmoil. Neighbors who had once chatted amicably over hedges now eyed each other with suspicion. The HOA office was eerily quiet, with Diane conspicuously absent. Rumors flew about impending legal action, potential criminal charges, and the future of our HOA. Some residents talked about selling their homes and moving, unwilling to deal with the uncertainty. As for me, I found myself at the center of a storm I never intended to create. Some neighbors hailed me as a hero, while others blamed me for disrupting their peaceful lives. The stress began to take its toll on my family, with Amber's Sweet 16 party long forgotten in the chaos. One evening, as I sat on our back porch staring at the now ominous clubhouse in the distance, Tom joined me with a heavy sigh. "Any news?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. He shook his head. "Nothing concrete. The audit's still ongoing. Diane's been placed on administrative leave, but that's all anyone knows for sure." I leaned my head on his shoulder, feeling the weight of the past few months. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Tom was quiet for a moment before responding. "I don't know, Bonnie. I really don't know, but I do know that once you see something wrong, you can't just unsee it. We had to do something." As the sun set over Sunnyside Estates, casting long shadows across our once idyllic neighborhood, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held. The HOA that was meant to protect our community had become a source of division and distrust. The clubhouse, once a symbol of unity, now stood as a reminder of the secrets and lies that had festered beneath its pristine exterior. The audit would eventually conclude, and changes would be made. But the scars left on our community would take far longer to heal. Trust, once broken, is not easily repaired, and as I sat there in the growing darkness, I realized that the true cost of uncovering the truth was far higher than any cleaning fee or document charge. The battle for transparency in Sunnyside Estates was far from over, and as the night settled in, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a long and difficult journey for our once peaceful community. Yet pretty much the same bullshit happening where I live. Refusal to show documents, money in the budget being spent on things with very vague descriptions. Money being spent on pointless projects but not on any repairs in buildings. Notices for upcoming projects and announcements about projects that have been done but they were never done. Board president owns a huge percentage of the units and rents them. Maintenance gets free housing and a $167,000 salary, but somehow we still have to call out for every repair or upgrade. The office is locked during the day. If they don't like what you asked, they'll say they won't talk about it further until they discuss with their lawyer. Paying a very expensive lawyer to rewrite our bylaws so they can shrink the board and have more power, all the good stuff. I could go on and on, it's hell. Well, clearly the manager and your board know that there is a conflict of interest on this cleaner, and they are willing to set up as many obstacles between you and the information, hoping that you will go away. The contract for a $130 cleaner is 58 pages long? Seems kinda ridiculous. Personally, my next step would be to request to view a copy of the contract with the manager. Owes it really stipulate $2 per page for emails? Again, the harder they make it to get information that you have a right to, the higher the likelihood there is some impropriety. The issue with the non-profit tax filing is an issue. Maybe check with the state to see if filing under the wrong name causes any exposure for the HOA. At the very least, the filing going to the state under the wrong name for nearly 10 years is concerning in terms of sloppy work. But it indicates that there are no checks and balances in the system. In my state, we have to have an annual majority vote to opt out of a third-party audit. Such an audit would catch this kind of error. I would raise this issue with the board and the manager, but more importantly, raise the issue at the annual meeting so that all of your fellow HOA members are aware of your concerns also.
If you like our stories, then please like and subscribe and comment, and remember to hit that bell icon so you never miss out. We have new stories almost every day.
The garbage can rule was something I didn't think much about when I first moved into the neighborhood. I figured it was one of those rules you just nod at, roll your eyes, and forget about. But no, this particular rule, that garbage cans couldn't be stored in view, quickly turned into the bane of my existence. It was written with the smug, self-satisfied pen of the HOA's most pedantic rulemakers. And like every other homeowner under their iron thumb, I was about to feel the full weight of their nonsense. The first time it really hit me was during a routine inspection. A couple of clipboard-toting board members along with Karen, yes, Karen, wandered down my street. Karen, the HOA's self-appointed enforcer, walked with all the righteousness of a hall monitor, handing out detention slips for gum chewing. Her beady little eyes scanned every driveway, yard, and front porch like she was searching for a lost treasure of violations. She stopped dead in front of my house, tilted her head, and scribbled something furiously on her clipboard. I didn't think much of it at the time, but that was my first mistake. 2 days later, I found the letter in my mailbox. Dear homeowner, it began, with all the fake politeness they could muster. It has come to our attention that your garbage cans were visible from the street during a routine inspection. Please move them to a concealed area immediately to avoid further action. The tone was as condescending as you'd expect. But it was the kicker. Wait, no, that really got me. As a reminder, per HOA guidelines, garbage cans may not be stored in public view at any time. What did they expect me to do? Magically teleport my trash to the curb on pickup day? I sighed and moved the cans into the garage, thinking it would be a minor inconvenience. Oh, how wrong I was. Within days, the smell hit me like a brick wall every time I opened the garage door. No matter how tightly I sealed the lids, that awful combination of food scraps, old diapers, and who knows what else seeped into the air. It was unbearable. I'd walk in to grab a tool or load something into my car, and the stench would practically knock me over. I tried everything, air fresheners, baking soda, even those fancy garbage bags with the lavender scent. Nothing worked. And that wasn't even the worst part. I had plans for that garage, big plans. I'd been slowly collecting the tools and materials to turn it into my dream workshop, a place where I could escape, tinker with projects, and maybe even build some furniture. But thanks to the HOA's garbage can rule, I couldn't stand to be in there for more than a few minutes. One day, as I was hauling in groceries, my neighbor Rick wandered over. Rick was one of those guys who always had an opinion and never hesitated to share it. Hey buddy, he said, leaning against the fence that separated our yards. You dealing with the garbage stink yet? I groaned. Don't even get me started. It's like a landfill in there. Rick nodded sympathetically. Yeah, same here. I wanted to turn my garage into a man cave, but the HOA killed that dream real quick. Can't even have a beer in there without gagging. We stood there for a moment, commiserating over the shared misery of our trash can prisons. That's when Rick told me about his run-in with Karen. She actually measured the distance between my garbage cans and the side of the house, he said, shaking his head. Said they were 2 inches too far forward. 2 inches, I laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that comes from deep frustration. Let me guess, she threatened you with a fine. Of course she did, Rick said. $50 per day until I corrected the violation. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about aesthetics, this was about control. The HOA wasn't content with dictating the color of our shutters or the height of our grass. Now they were finding ways to worm their way into our homes, making even our private spaces unbearable. The next HOA meeting was a spectacle. The room was packed with frustrated homeowners, all there to voice their grievances. Karen sat at the front, smug as ever, flanked by the rest of the board. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't hold back. Can someone explain to me, I said, why we're forced to store our garbage cans in our garages when it's clearly making those spaces unusable? Karen adjusted her glasses and gave me a patronizing smile. The rule is in place to maintain the neighborhood's aesthetic standards. Aesthetic standards, I shot back. You can't even see my garage from the street. What difference does it make if my garbage cans are outside or inside? She folded her hands and leaned forward, like she was explaining something to a particularly slow child. It's about consistency. If we allow exceptions, where do we draw the line? The crowd murmured in agreement with me. But Karen didn't budge. She just sat there, radiating self-righteousness, while the rest of the board nodded along like a pack of bobbleheads. The meeting ended without any resolution, of course. Karen and her cronies refused to budge, and we were left to deal with the consequences of their absurd rule. Back at home, I tried to come up with a workaround. I looked into those fancy garbage can enclosures, but the HOA had banned those too. Apparently they were considered unsightly. I even thought about renting a small dumpster and hiding it behind the house, but Rick warned me that Karen had a drone. Yes, a drone. She used it to patrol the neighborhood, searching for violations from above. This woman is unhinged, I muttered to myself, as I stared at the drone buzzing over my backyard one afternoon. Rick and I weren't the only ones fed up. Another neighbor, Linda, had taken to putting her garbage cans in her car and driving them to a friend's house just to avoid the smell. I can't live like this, she told me one evening. I'm seriously considering selling my house. I couldn't blame her. The whole situation was absurd, but the HOA had us cornered. We couldn't fight them without risking fines or worse. And Karen, she was loving every minute of it. Weeks turned into months, and the smell in my garage only got worse. My dream workshop became a distant memory, replaced by a stinking, unusable space, and every time I saw Karen strutting down the street with her clipboard, I felt a surge of anger that I couldn't do anything about. The garbage can rule wasn't just a minor inconvenience, it was a calculated move to control how we used our homes, to strip us of our freedom in the most insidious way possible. And Karen, she was the face of that control, a petty tyrant with too much power and not enough empathy. And the worst part, there was nothing we could do about it. Where I am, city code disallows can in the front yard, and they can only be out on the curb on trash day, although they don't always enforce it anymore. It's for appearances, which is silly, but it does have a side benefit. The wind often blows like here, and forcing people to keep them tucked away in the backyard makes for a hell of a lot less mess after the wind blows. I spend countless hours picking up wind-blown trash in fall and winter due to the assholes who have their gardeners put their cans out for them several days before trash day, because they're too lazy good to do it themselves and too stupid to tape the lids shut. Not to mention dents in cars and garage doors when from trash cans getting blown into them. Kinda niche, I know, but at least where I am, it'd be worse than it is if people were allowed to keep them just sitting out front all week long. We don't have a garage. It was converted before we bought the house. That doesn't keep us from getting a threatening letter every time we get a new HOA board. 24 years in this house, it got to the point I just re-forward the same email chain explaining once again it's impossible to keep garbage cans in the garage when there is no garage. 24 years. I live in a non-HOA neighborhood, and there's an ordinance in place that says trash cans and recycling bins can't be seen from the street. My recycling cart is behind a shrub, and my trash can is in the garage, which doesn't smell, by the way. If it sits for more than 2 weeks, missing at least one trash day, then it starts to smell. What the hell are you putting in your can to make it smell bad?
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.